My name is Sherry, and at 56 years old, I thought I had done everything right as a mother. For 29 years, I poured my heart and soul into raising my daughter, sacrificing my own dreams so she could have every opportunity. My husband Frank and I worked overtime, skipped vacations, and delayed our retirement to give her the life we never had. But sometimes love and sacrifice are not enough. Sometimes you discover that the child you raised has forgotten where she came from. And sometimes you have to make the hardest decision of your life to teach them what truly matters. Before I share what happened, I would love to know where you are watching from. If you have ever felt unappreciated by someone you love, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe, because this story will show you why setting boundaries is sometimes the greatest act of love. Let me tell you how one invitation we never received changed everything. Frank and I have lived in Austin, Texas for over 3 decades now. We met when I was 24 and he was 26, both of us working-class kids, trying to make something of ourselves. He had just opened a small auto repair shop, and I was finishing my nursing degree. We fell in love over cheap coffee and shared dreams of building a good life together. We got married 32 years ago in a simple ceremony at the courthouse with just our parents and a few close friends. Money was tight, but we were happy. A year later, our daughter Courtney was born, and she became our entire world. She was our only child, and we wanted to give her everything we never had growing up. Frank worked long hours at the shop, often staying late to take on extra jobs. I took the night shift at the hospital so we could save on childcare. We never complained because every sacrifice felt worth it when we saw Courtney smile. As Courtney grew up, we made sure she had opportunities. Piano lessons, summer camps, good schools. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but clean and safe. Frank drove the same pickup truck for 15 years because we wanted to put money toward Courtney's education instead. I wore scrubs to work and old jeans on weekends, rarely buying anything new for myself. Our vacations were camping trips to state parks, never the beach resorts or European tours that Courtney's friends went on. But we were proud. We were building something for our daughter. When Courtney turned 18 and got accepted to the University of Texas, Frank and I were over the moon. She wanted to study marketing, and we supported her completely. The tuition was not cheap, even for in-state students. Over 4 years between tuition room and board books and living expenses, we spent around $120,000. We paid every penny. Frank took on more repair jobs, working 6 days a week. I picked up extra shifts whenever I could. We dipped into our retirement savings. But we did it gladly because we did not want Courtney to graduate with the crushing student loan debt that so many young people face today. Courtney did well in college. She made friends, joined clubs, maintained decent grades. She called home regularly, and we visited her on campus a few times each semester. She seemed happy, and that made all our sacrifices worthwhile. When she graduated 3 years ago, we were so proud. She walked across that stage, and Frank and I sat in the audience with tears streaming down our faces. Our daughter, the first person in either of our families to earn a college degree. After graduation, Courtney got a job at a small marketing firm in Dallas, about 3 hours north of us. The starting salary was not particularly high, maybe $40,000 a year, but it was a good opportunity for her to build experience. Dallas is expensive, though, especially for a young professional just starting out. So Frank and I continued to help. We paid the deposit on her apartment $3,000. We bought her furniture because she had nothing, another $5,000. We gave her our old car, but a year later it died. So we helped her buy a newer used vehicle. We put down $15,000 as a down payment, so her monthly payments would be manageable. We also started sending her $500 every month to help with expenses. Groceries, utilities, gas, whatever she needed. On top of that, we paid her car insurance, which was $200 a month. Frank sometimes questioned whether we were doing too much. He would sit at the kitchen table after dinner going over our bank statements and say something like, "Sherry, maybe we need to ease up a bit. She has a job now. She should be standing on her own 2 feet." But I always defended our approach. She is our only child, Frank. We want her to have a good start. Things are harder for young people these days. We can afford to help, so why would not we? Looking back, maybe Frank was right to be concerned. But at the time, it felt like the loving thing to do. Courtney would call me 2 or 3 times a week, telling me about her work projects, her apartment, the new restaurants she tried in Dallas. I loved those conversations. I felt close to her, connected. She would thank me for the money transfers, tell me how much it helped. I felt needed, important in her life. What mother does not want that? Then about 6 months ago, Courtney called with exciting news. She had met someone. His name was Derek, and she sounded absolutely smitten. Derek was 32, worked in tech, and came from what Courtney described as a really successful family. I was happy for her, of course. She invited us to meet Derek a few weeks later at a restaurant in Dallas. Frank and I drove up on a Saturday afternoon. The restaurant Courtney chose was nicer than the places we usually went, the kind with cloth napkins and a wine list. Derek was already there when we arrived, sitting next to Courtney in a button-down shirt and expensive-looking watch. He stood up to shake our hands, polite enough, but there was something distant in his manner. He smiled, but it did not quite reach his eyes. During dinner, Derek talked mostly about his work, his recent promotion, his family's real estate business. His parents, he mentioned, casually owned several commercial properties around Dallas and Houston. I noticed Courtney hanging on his every word, laughing at his jokes, touching his arm. She seemed different around him, more careful, like she was trying to impress him. When Frank tried to talk about his auto shop, Derek nodded politely, but clearly was not very interested. At one point, Derek asked what kind of cars Frank specialized in, and when Frank said he mostly worked on domestic brands and older models, Derek said, "Oh, interesting. I only drive European." It was not said rudely exactly, but the implication was clear. We were not quite in his league. I left that dinner feeling uneasy. Frank was quieter than usual on the drive home. Finally, he said, "That guy is kind of a snob, is not he?" I wanted to disagree to defend Courtney's choice, but honestly, I felt the same way. Still, I told Frank, if Courtney is happy, that is all that matters. Maybe he will grow on us. 3 months later, Courtney called with even bigger news. Derek had proposed. She was engaged. She was breathless with excitement, describing the proposal at some fancy rooftop restaurant, the huge diamond ring, how romantic it all was. Frank and I congratulated her, genuinely happy that she was happy. I asked about wedding plans, and Courtney said they were thinking next spring, probably in Dallas. She said she would keep us updated as plans developed. I started daydreaming about wedding planning, about helping Courtney choose a dress, about mother-daughter bonding over flower arrangements and seating charts. I imagined walking down the aisle, seeing my little girl get married. It felt like the culmination of everything we had worked for, seeing her settled and happy. But then everything changed on one Saturday evening 2 months ago. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through Facebook, just mindlessly looking at pictures of friends' grandchildren and recipe videos, when I came across a post from someone named Samantha. I recognized the name vaguely as one of Courtney's college friends. The post had been made earlier that evening, and the caption read, "Celebrating Courtney and Derek's engagement. What a beautiful party." My heart stopped. Party? What party? I clicked on the photos. There were at least a dozen of them. Courtney in a gorgeous navy blue cocktail dress, Derek beside her in a suit, both of them smiling and holding champagne glasses. The setting was clearly upscale, some kind of country club, or private event space with elegant decorations, string lights hanging overhead, a buffet table laden with fancy appetizers. There were maybe 40 or 50 people in the photos, all dressed up clearly, having a wonderful time. I kept scrolling through the images, my hands starting to shake. There were pictures of Courtney cutting a cake with Derek, pictures of them posing with other couples, pictures of a slideshow presentation playing on a big screen. One photo showed Derek's parents, who I recognized from a picture Courtney had shown me once. They were raising glasses in a toast. Another photo showed a table piled with wrapped gifts. This was not some last-minute casual get-together. This was a planned event, an engagement party complete with decorations, catering, and a guest list. And we had not been invited. We had not even been told it was happening. I called out to Frank, who was in the garage working on something. He came in wiping his hands on a rag, took one look at my face, and asked what was wrong. I handed him my phone without saying anything. He looked at the screen, scrolling through the photos, his expression changing from confusion to hurt to anger. "Did she tell you about this?" he asked quietly. I shook my head. Not a word. "Check your messages. Maybe there was an invite we missed somehow." I went through my entire phone. Text messages, emails, voicemails. Nothing. Not a single mention of an engagement party. I checked the mail on the kitchen counter, thinking maybe a physical invitation had arrived and I had somehow overlooked it. Nothing. Frank sat down heavily on the couch beside me. We just stared at each other for a long moment, neither of us knowing what to say. Finally, I said, "There has to be an explanation. Maybe it was a surprise party that Derek's family threw, and Courtney did not have control over the guest list." Even as I said it, I did not really believe it. The photos showed Courtney clearly comfortable and in charge, greeting guests, posing for pictures. This was not something that had caught her off guard. Frank's jaw was tight. "You need to call her." I dialed Courtney's number. It rang and rang, then went to voicemail. I hung up without leaving a message. What would I even say? I tried again. Same result. I sent a text message, keeping it light, trying not to sound accusatory. "Honey, I saw photos from your engagement party. It looked lovely. I wish we could have been there." I watched the screen, waiting for the 3 little dots to appear, showing she was typing back. Nothing. 10 minutes passed. 20. An hour. Frank and I sat in silence, the television playing some show neither of us was watching. I went back to Facebook and looked at the photos again, studying every detail. The party had clearly been at a high-end venue. The decorations alone must have cost thousands of dollars. There were floral centerpieces on every table, a professional photographer capturing everything, waiters circulating with trays of hors d'oeuvres. This was not a casual backyard barbecue. This was a serious event. And we had not been there. Courtney's own parents. The people who had raised her, sacrificed for her, supported her through everything, had not even been invited. The hurt started settling in my chest like a heavy stone. Frank paced back and forth across the living room. "This is disrespectful," he finally said. "After everything we have done for her. We have given her everything, Sherry. Everything. And she could not even invite us to her own engagement party." I wanted to defend Courtney, to find some explanation that would make this okay. But I could not. There was no good reason for this. Even if Derek's family had organized and paid for everything, even if they had controlled the guest list, Courtney should have insisted we be included. We were her parents. If she had wanted us there, we would have been there. Sleep did not come easily that night. I lay awake next to Frank, listening to him breathe, my mind replaying every photo I had seen. The more I thought about it, the more hurt I felt. And beneath the hurt, something else was growing. Anger. The next morning, Courtney finally called back. I was making coffee when my phone rang. I answered immediately. Hi, Mum, what's up? Her voice was casual light, like nothing was wrong. I took a breath, trying to keep my voice steady. I saw the photos from your engagement party. It looked beautiful. There was a pause. Oh, yeah. It was nice. Why did not you invite us? The words came out more bluntly than I had intended. Another pause longer this time. Then Courtney sighed. Mum, it was Derek's parents who organized it. It was their guest list. I did not really have control over who got invited. But you could have asked them to include us. We are your parents. It was complicated. Derek's family has certain expectations. They wanted it to be a specific crowd, you know. Their friends, their business associates, people from their social circle. I felt like I had been slapped. A specific crowd. And we do not fit into that crowd. Do not take it personally, Mum. It is just how things are in Derek's world. His family is very particular about these events. Derek's world. What about your world? What about your family? My voice was rising now. Emotion breaking through. Look, I do not want to argue about this. The party is over. Can we just move on? Move on? Courtney, you excluded us from one of the most important moments of your life. Do you have any idea how that feels? I have to go, Mum. I will talk to you later. And she hung up. Just like that. I stood there in the kitchen, holding the phone, staring at the screen in disbelief. Frank came in and looked at me expectantly. What did she say? I told him everything. By the time I finished, Frank's face was red. That is it, he said. We need to have a serious talk with her about respect. This is not okay, Sherry. This is not how you treat your parents. I agreed, but part of me still wanted to make excuses for Courtney. Maybe she really had not had control. Maybe Derek's parents were overbearing. Maybe she was just trying to fit into this new life and made a mistake. But deep down, I knew the truth. Courtney had made a choice. She had chosen to exclude us. And that choice said something about how she saw us, about how she valued our relationship. For the first time in 29 years, I felt like I did not know my own daughter. Over the next few days, I could not stop thinking about the engagement party. I kept going back to those Facebook photos, torturing myself by looking at them over and over. Each time I noticed new details that hurt even more. In one photo, Derek's mother had her arm around Courtney, both of them laughing at something. In another, Courtney was hugging an older couple I did not recognize, looking completely at ease and happy. She had not looked uncomfortable or out of place. She had not looked like someone being forced to exclude her own parents. She had looked like she belonged there, like she was exactly where she wanted to be. I called my sister Patricia, needing to talk to someone outside of Frank and me. Patricia has always been protective of me, and when I told her what happened, she was furious. Are you kidding me? Patricia's voice came through the phone, sharp and loud. After everything you and Frank have done for that girl. The money you have spent, the sacrifices you have made. And she could not even invite you to her engagement party. That is beyond disrespectful, Sherry. That is cruel. I keep trying to understand it from her perspective, I said weakly. Maybe she was in a difficult position. No, no excuses. She is an adult. If she wanted you there, you would have been there. Period. She made a choice, and that choice was to prioritize Derek's family over her own. You need to wake up, Sherry. She is taking you for granted. Patricia's words stung because they rang true. I had been making excuses for Courtney, trying to protect her in my mind. But maybe that was exactly the problem. Maybe I had been protecting her too much for too long. What should I do? I asked. You need to set boundaries. Stop letting her walk all over you. Stop the money for starters. She has a job. She is about to marry into wealth. She does not need your $500 a month. Make her stand on her own 2 feet for once. After I hung up with Patricia, I sat thinking about what she had said. Then I called my friend Helen, someone I had worked with at the hospital for years. Helen is practical and wise, someone whose judgment I trust. Helen listened to the whole story, then said, I went through something similar with my son a few years back. Not exactly the same situation, but he was taking our help for granted, treating us like an ATM machine rather than his parents. It got to the point where he only called when he needed money. My husband and I finally had to cut him off financially. It was hard, but it was the wake-up call he needed. Did it work? I asked. Eventually, yes. At first he was angry, accused us of being cruel and unsupportive. But after a few months of managing his own finances, of facing real consequences for his choices, he started to mature. He started to appreciate what we had done for him. Our relationship is better now than it has been in years, but we had to go through that difficult period first. After those conversations, I started looking at our situation differently. Frank and I sat down one evening and went through our finances, really examining how much we had been supporting Courtney over the years. The numbers were staggering. College expenses, $120,000. Since graduation 3 years ago, we had been sending $500 a month, which added up to $18,000 total. The car down payment, $15,000. Furniture and household items when she first moved around, $5,000. Smaller gifts here and there, helping with unexpected expenses, probably another $3,000 or $4,000 over the years. We had been paying her car insurance for 3 years at $200 a month, another $7,000. Frank did the math on a notepad. We have spent approximately $180,000 on Courtney since she turned 18. $180,000. I stared at the number. It was more than some people earn in 3 or 4 years of working full-time. And that does not count everything we spent raising her before 18, Frank continued. We are not wealthy people, Sherry. This money came from working overtime, from skipping vacations, from delaying our own retirement. I am still working 6 days a week at 58 years old because we drained our savings putting her through college. The reality of it hit me hard. We had sacrificed so much, and for what to be excluded from our daughter's engagement party because we were not fancy enough for her new boyfriend's family. What do you want to do? I asked Frank quietly. He put down the pen and looked at me. I think we need to stop the monthly payments. She does not need them anymore. She has a decent job. She is marrying a wealthy man. And more importantly, she needs to learn that relationships are not one-sided. She needs to learn respect and gratitude. And apparently the only way she will learn that is if we step back. My first instinct was to resist. To say no, we could not do that, she was still our daughter, we should keep supporting her. But then I thought about that engagement party, about how easily Courtney had excluded us, about how dismissive she had been on the phone when I confronted her. You are right, I finally said. We need to set boundaries. We decided on a clear plan. We would stop the monthly $500 deposits. We would stop paying her car insurance, which she was perfectly capable of covering herself. We would not offer any financial support for the wedding, unless Courtney's attitude changed significantly. And most importantly, we would not do this out of anger or revenge. We would do it calmly, clearly, as a teaching moment. But Courtney needed to understand that love and support go both ways. She needed to understand that you cannot treat your parents like they are insignificant and still expect them to function as your personal bank account. I called Courtney the following week to tell her our decision. When Courtney answered the phone, her voice had that same casual, unbothered tone. Hi, Mom. I did not waste time with small talk. Courtney, Your father and I need to talk to you about something important. Okay, what is it? I could hear traffic noise in the background. She was probably driving. We have been thinking a lot about what happened with your engagement party. The fact that you did not invite us really hurt both of us. She sighed heavily. Mum, I already explained that. It was not my decision. Derek's parents organized everything. But you did not fight for us, Courtney. You did not insist that your parents be included in celebrating your engagement. That tells us something about how you see us, about how much you value our relationship. That is not fair. You do not understand the pressure I am under with Derek's family. They have expectations. They wanted the party to be a certain way with certain people. I could not just demand they invite more guests. We are not more guests, Courtney. We are your parents. We are the people who raised you, who paid for your entire education, who have supported you financially for years, even after you graduated and got a job. Silence on the other end. I continued. Your father and I have made a decision. We are going to stop the monthly financial support. Starting next month, we will no longer be depositing $500 into your account. We are also not going to pay your car insurance anymore. You are 29 years old with a good job and a wealthy fiance. It is time for you to stand on your own financially. What? Her voice shot up. You are cutting me off because I did not invite you to one party. This is not punishment, Courtney. This is about boundaries and respect. We have been supporting you financially for years, long after most parents stop helping. But it has become clear that you take it for granted. You do not appreciate what we have done for you. Or if you do appreciate it, you certainly do not show it. I do not take it for granted. I appreciate everything you have done. Her voice was rising now, defensive and angry. Then why did not you include us in one of the most important moments of your life? Why did not you fight for us to be at your engagement party? You do not understand the pressure I am under. Derek's family has expectations. His mother. She has all these rules about social events and who gets invited and how things should be done. I am trying to fit in, Mum. I am trying to make a good impression so they accept me. And you chose to meet their expectations over honoring your own family. You chose to fit into their world, even if that meant excluding the people who have loved and supported you your entire life. Courtney's voice cracked. So you are punishing me for trying to build a life with Derek. You are cutting me off financially because I am trying to make my relationship work. No, sweetheart. We are teaching you. You need to learn that relationships, all relationships, are about respect and reciprocity. You cannot treat people like they do not matter and still expect them to support you unconditionally. I never said you do not matter. But your actions did. Actions speak louder than words, Courtney. And your actions at that engagement party spoke very clearly. There was a long silence. I could hear her breathing fast and uneven. When she spoke again, her voice was tearful. I do not believe this. After everything, you are going to abandon me. We are not abandoning you. We will always love you. We will always be here for you emotionally. But financially, it is time for you to stand on your own. You are an adult. You have a job. You are marrying someone from a wealthy family. You do not need our money anymore. And honestly, it does not feel good to keep giving money to someone who treats us the way you did. Fine. Her voice turned cold. I do not need your money anyway. Derek takes care of me. That hurt more than I expected. I hope that is true, honey. But know this. We love you and we always will. But we will not allow ourselves to be disrespected. When you are ready to have a relationship with us based on mutual love and respect, not financial dependence, we will be here. I have to go, she said abruptly, and the line went dead. I sat there staring at my phone, my hands shaking. Frank came into the room and put his hand on my shoulder. How did it go? About as well as expected, I said quietly. She is angry. She thinks we are punishing her. We are not punishing her. We are teaching her. I know, but it does not feel good. Frank sat down beside me. Parenting is not always about feeling good. Sometimes it is about doing what is right, even when it is hard. The next 2 weeks were silent. Courtney did not call, did not text, did not respond to any messages I sent. I checked her social media and saw that she had unfriended me on Facebook. That stung more than I wanted to admit. Frank was firmer than I was. Good, he said when I told him about being unfriended. If she wants to act like a child, let her. She will come around eventually, or she will not. Either way, we did the right thing. But I was not so sure. At night, I lay awake wondering if we had made a terrible mistake. What if Courtney never spoke to us again? What if this destroyed our relationship permanently? I thought about calling her, about backing down, about just going back to the way things were. Then I would remember that engagement party. I would remember the photos of Courtney laughing and happy, surrounded by Derek's family and friends, not a care in the world about the parents who were not there. And I would remember why we made this decision. One day, my sister Patricia called to check on me. When I told her Courtney had cut off contact, Patricia said, "She will come around. Right now she is angry because she got called out. But once she has time to think about it, once she realizes you are serious, she will start to understand." What if she does not? I asked. Then that will tell you everything you need to know about her character. But I do not think it will come to that. Give her time. About 3 weeks after our phone call, I got a message from Patricia. She had seen a post on Courtney's social media, something vague but clearly directed at us. Courtney had written, "When the people who are supposed to support you unconditionally turn their backs on you, you learn who really matters." I asked Patricia to send me a screenshot. Reading those words felt like a knife to the chest. Courtney genuinely believed that we had turned our backs on her, that we were the ones in the wrong. But I noticed something else about the post. It only had a few likes, a few supportive comments from friends who probably did not know the full story. Maybe not everyone was as sympathetic to Courtney's perspective as she hoped. As the weeks went by, I started to feel more confident in our decision. Not because it was easy, but because it felt necessary. Frank and I talked about it often. We reminded each other why we had done this. Not out of spite, but out of love. Sometimes love means setting boundaries. Sometimes love means letting your child face consequences. Then, about a month after we stopped the financial support, I started to see signs that things were changing for Courtney. I did not hear directly from Courtney, but I picked up information here and there. A mutual friend mentioned running into Courtney at the grocery store and being surprised that she was shopping with coupons. Patricia told me she had seen Courtney's car still had an expired inspection sticker weeks after it should have been renewed. Small things, but they suggested that money was tighter than it had been. 2 months after our phone call, my phone rang late one evening. Courtney's name appeared on the screen. My heart jumped. Frank was sitting beside me on the couch, and I showed him the phone. He nodded at me. "Answer it." I pressed the button. "Hello?" "Mum." Her voice was small, uncertain, not the defensive, angry tone from our last conversation. "Hi, honey." There was a pause. I could hear her breathing. "Can we talk?" "Of course." Another pause. Then, "I have been thinking a lot about what you said, about respect and boundaries and all of that." I waited, letting her continue at her own pace. "You were right." Her voice cracked. I took you and Dad for granted. I was so caught up in Derek's world, in trying to fit in with his family and their lifestyle, that I forgot where I came from. I forgot what you sacrificed for me. Tears started forming in my eyes, but I kept my voice steady. I am listening. The engagement party. She continued, her words coming faster now. I should have insisted you be there. I should have stood up to Derek's parents and told them that my parents needed to be included. But I did not. I was too worried about making a good impression, about being accepted by them. And in doing that, I hurt the two people who have loved me my whole life. Why did not you fight for us? I asked gently. She was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, I think I was embarrassed. Derek's family is so wealthy, so polished. Their friends are executives and doctors and lawyers. And I thought about you and Dad showing up, and I thought... She trailed off. You thought we would not fit in, I finished for her. Yes. Her voice was barely a whisper. And I hate myself for thinking that. Because you and Dad are good people. You worked hard your whole lives. You gave me everything. And I repaid you by being ashamed of you. I am so sorry, Mum. I am so, so sorry. Now I was crying openly. Frank reached over and took my hand. Thank you for saying that, I managed. That means more than you know. I have had a really hard couple of months, Courtney continued. Not having your financial help has been tough. My car insurance alone is $200 a month, and I did not realize how many little expenses I was covering with that $500 you sent. I have had to budget for the first time in my adult life, really budget. I have had to say no to things to cut back, and I realized how much you were doing for me, how much I had taken for granted. But this is not just about money, is it? I asked. No. No, it is not. I genuinely miss you. I miss our phone calls. I miss feeling like I have a family that loves me for who I am, not for who they want me to be. We do love you, sweetheart. We never stopped loving you. I know, and I love you too. So much. I just got lost for a while there. We talked for over an hour that night. Courtney told me more about her life with Derek, about the pressure she felt from his family. His parents, especially his mother, had very specific ideas about how things should be done, about what kind of person was suitable for their son. There were comments about Courtney's background, subtle digs about her coming from humble beginnings. One time, Derek's mother Judith had made a remark about how Courtney was refreshingly down to earth, which sounded like a compliment, but felt like an insult. Another time, at a family dinner, Derek's father Harold had asked what Frank did for a living, and when Courtney said he owned an auto repair shop, Harold had said, "Oh, blue-collar work, how quaint." Courtney had laughed it off at the time, not wanting to make waves. But each little comment had chipped away at her, making her feel like she needed to distance herself from her own family to be accepted by Derek's. I can see now how wrong that was, she said. I should have stood up for you and Dad. I should have told them that my family is just as valuable as theirs, that working class does not mean less than. But I did not. I just went along with it, because I wanted them to like me. What about Derek? I asked. How does he feel about all this? Derek is complicated. He loves me, I know he does. But he also does not always stand up to his parents. He lets them have their way to keep the peace. When I told him I was upset about the engagement party guest list, he said I was being too sensitive, that his parents had paid for everything, so they got to decide who came. That bothered me, but I did not want to criticize Derek too harshly. How do you feel about that? Not great, honestly. It has been making me think about what our marriage will be like. Will I always be expected to bend to his family's wishes? Will he support me when it matters? These were important questions, but they were Courtney's to work through. Those are things you need to figure out before the wedding, I said carefully. Marriage is hard enough without going into it with doubts. I know. I have a lot to think about. Before we hung up, I said, Courtney, I appreciate you calling and apologizing. That took courage. But your father and I need to see real change, not just words. What do you mean? We are not going to resume the monthly payments. You are an adult, and you need to manage your own finances. We are not trying to be cruel, but you need to learn independence. However, we will be there for you emotionally. We want to rebuild our relationship. But it has to be based on mutual respect, not financial dependence. I understand, she said. And honestly, I think that is fair. I do need to learn to stand on my own. There is one more thing, I added. When you and Derek get married, your father and I will contribute to the wedding. We want to be part of that celebration, but only if we are truly included this time. Not as afterthoughts, but as your parents. Can you promise me that... I promise, Mum. Things are going to be different. I am going to make sure of it. I hope so, honey. I really do. After we hung up, Frank looked at me with raised eyebrows. So, she apologized. Really apologized, not just empty words. She understands what she did wrong. Do you think she means it? I think so. Time will tell. Frank nodded slowly. Good. But we are still not sending her money every month. Agreed. That part does not change. For the first time in months, I felt a small spark of hope. 3 weeks after that phone call, Courtney drove down to Austin to visit us. It was a Saturday afternoon, and Frank and I were both home. When her car pulled into the driveway, I felt nervous. In a way I had not felt around my own daughter in years. She got out of the car, looking thinner than I remembered her face, a little more drawn. When she came through the door, she dropped her purse and immediately wrapped her arms around me. I missed you so much, Mum. I hugged her back tightly, feeling tears spring to my eyes. I missed you too, baby. Frank stood a bit apart, more reserved. Courtney walked over to him and hugged him too. I am sorry, Dad, for everything. Frank's expression softened. He hugged her back and said gruffly, Do not ever shut us out like that again. I will not. I promise. We spent the afternoon talking. Really talking in a way we had not in a long time. Courtney was more honest than she had been in months. She talked about the stress of trying to fit into Derek's world, the pressure from his family, the subtle ways they made her feel inferior. She also talked about money. You were right about me not understanding finances. These past couple months, having to pay for everything myself, it has been eye-opening. I never realized how expensive life is, or how much you were helping me. I thought I was doing fine on my salary, but that was only because you were supplementing it. Frank asked, Are you managing okay now? Barely, she admitted. I had to give up my gym membership, stop eating out as much, cut back on shopping. It has been an adjustment, but I think it is good for me. I needed to learn this. I felt proud of her for admitting that. Personal growth is not easy, especially when it means acknowledging your own mistakes. We had dinner together that night, just the three of us, like old times. Courtney helped me in the kitchen, and we fell into an easy rhythm of chopping vegetables and stirring pots, talking about small things and big things. It felt good, natural, like we were finding our way back to each other. Over the next few weeks, Courtney made an effort to stay in touch. She called regularly, not just when she needed something, but just to talk. She sent me funny texts during the day, shared articles she thought I would find interesting. Small gestures, but they meant the world to me. One day she called and asked if I wanted to come to Dallas for a girls' day, just the two of us. I said yes immediately. We met at a coffee shop, then went shopping together. Not at the high-end boutiques Courtney used to frequent, but at normal stores with reasonable prices. She tried on dresses and asked my opinion, and we laughed together like we used to. At lunch, she brought up the wedding. "Mum, I want you to help me pick out my wedding dress. Will you come with me when I go dress shopping?" My eyes filled with tears. "I would love that, honey. I should have asked you from the beginning. I got so wrapped up in Derek's mum wanting to take me to these fancy bridal salons. But that is not what I want. I want you there. You are my mum." A few weeks later, we went dress shopping together. Just the two of us at a bridal boutique in Austin. Courtney tried on dress after dress, and I sat on the little couch giving my honest opinions. When she found the right one, a simple but elegant gown that made her look absolutely beautiful, we both cried. "This is the one," she said, looking at herself in the mirror. "You look perfect," I told her. Things were not perfect between us. Rebuilding trust takes time. But we were trying, both of us, to create a relationship based on honesty and mutual respect, rather than obligation and guilt. Courtney also made an effort with Derek. She told me she had a serious conversation with him about his family's treatment of her, and about how important it was that he support her. I told him that I need him to stand up for me sometimes, especially when his family makes those subtle digs about my background. He did not really get it at first, but we talked it through. He is trying. I hoped Derek really was trying. Only time would tell if he would be the partner Courtney needed. But at least she was being honest with herself about the challenges. One evening, Courtney suggested we have dinner with both families, hers and Derek's. "I want you to get to know Harold and Judith better, and I want them to know you," she said. "I think part of the problem before was that nobody really knew each other. Maybe if we spend more time together, things will get better." I was not entirely convinced, but I appreciated Courtney's effort. We agreed to meet at a restaurant neutral territory where everyone might feel more comfortable. The dinner was fine. Not great, but fine. Harold and Judith were polite, if a bit formal. Judith complimented my dress, though I could not tell if she was being sincere or just making obligatory small talk. Harold asked Frank about his business, and this time Frank talked about it with confidence, not apologizing for being a blue-collar worker. At one point, Judith made a comment about how wonderful it was that Courtney and Derek were bringing together families from such different backgrounds. It was said with a smile, but there was still that undertone of condescension, that subtle implication that our background was somehow less than theirs. But this time, Courtney spoke up. "Mum, Dad and I might not have had wealth growing up, but we had love and stability. They worked hard to give me opportunities, and I am proud of where I come from." Judith looked a bit taken aback, but she recovered quickly. "Of course, dear. That is what I meant." Later in the car on the way home, Frank said, "Well, that was awkward." "It was," I agreed. "But did you notice how Courtney stood up for us? That is new." "It is," Frank smiled. "Maybe she really is changing." Our relationship was healing slowly but surely. It was not the same as it had been before. We had both been hurt, both learned difficult lessons. But maybe it was better this way, more honest, more balanced. Courtney was learning to be independent, to manage her own life and finances. And Frank and I were learning that helping our child did not mean sacrificing our own dignity and self-respect. It was not perfect, but it was real, and that felt like enough. Now, 6 months after the engagement party that started all of this, I can look back with a clearer perspective. Our relationship with Courtney has changed, evolved into something different than it was before. We talk regularly, we see each other often, but there is a boundary now that did not exist before. A healthy boundary. Courtney is managing her finances independently. She has learned to budget, to prioritize, to make choices about what she can and cannot afford. It has not been easy for her, but it has been necessary. She has grown up in ways she needed to. Frank and I have kept our word. We did not resume the monthly payments. We did not take over her car insurance again. But when Courtney's car needed an unexpected repair that she could not afford, we helped her out. Not by paying for it entirely, but by lending her the money which she is paying back in small installments. That felt different better. Not an endless stream of support that she took for granted, but a specific reciprocal transaction. We also contributed to her wedding as we had promised. Not an enormous amount, we are not wealthy people, but enough to help with some of the costs. More importantly, we were involved in the planning this time. Courtney asked for my input on flowers on the menu, on seating arrangements. She made sure Frank and I were included in every aspect of the celebration. The wedding is next month. Courtney and Derek are getting married in Dallas at a venue that is nice but not overly extravagant. Both families will be there, and this time Frank and I will walk our daughter down the aisle together. Courtney insisted on that. "You are both my parents," she said. "You both deserve to be part of this moment." Looking back on these past months, I realized that the engagement party, as painful as it was, might have been the wake-up call we all needed. It forced Frank and me to examine our relationship with Courtney, to acknowledge that we had been enabling her rather than helping her grow. It forced Courtney to confront some uncomfortable truths about herself, about the choices she had been making, about what really matters in life. I have learned that love is not just about giving endlessly. Love also means setting boundaries. Saying no, letting people face consequences. It is not always comfortable, and it is not always pretty, but sometimes it is necessary. Courtney has learned that all relationships are built on mutual respect. You cannot take people for granted, even people who love you unconditionally. You cannot treat your parents like they do not matter, and still expect them to support you in every way. And together we have all learned that family is not about money or social status, or fitting in with the right crowd. Family is about showing up for each other, about honoring the people who have been there from the beginning, about choosing love and loyalty over convenience and appearances. I will not pretend everything is perfect now. Derek's family still makes occasional comments that rub me the wrong way. Courtney and I still have moments of tension, remnants of the hurt that was caused. Frank still gets angry when he thinks about that engagement party and what it represented. But we are moving forward. We are building something new, something stronger, something more honest than what we had before. The day we cut off Courtney's financial support, I felt like we were making the hardest decision of our lives as parents. I questioned it constantly, worried we were doing the wrong thing, feared we might lose our daughter forever. Now I know it was the right decision, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give your child is the space to grow up, to make mistakes, to learn from consequences. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the courage to set boundaries, even with the people you love most. We are stronger now, all three of us. Our relationship is based on mutual respect, rather than financial dependence, on honest communication, rather than unspoken resentments. It is not the relationship we had before, but it is better. It is real. And as I sit here now thinking about walking Courtney down the aisle next month, I feel grateful. Grateful that we had the courage to set boundaries when we needed to. Grateful that Courtney had the humility to recognize her mistakes and change. Grateful that we found our way back to each other, not as parent and dependent child, but as adults who choose to love and respect each other. The engagement party we were not invited to taught me something valuable. It taught me that sometimes being excluded is not the end of the story. Sometimes it is the beginning of a new chapter, a harder chapter, but ultimately a better one. So here is my question for you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with someone you love, even when it hurt? Have you ever had to make a difficult decision for someone's own good, knowing they might not understand or appreciate it at the time? Drop a comment below and share your experience. I would love to hear your story. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It really helps. And if you are not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Share this video with anyone who might need to hear this message about boundaries, respect, and the complicated nature of family relationships. Thank you for listening to my story. It was not easy to share, but I hope it helps someone out there who might be going through something similar. Remember, setting boundaries is not cruel. It is not abandonment. Sometimes it is the most loving thing you can do. Take care of yourselves and remember that you deserve to be treated with respect, even by the people you love most. Wishing you all strength, wisdom, and the courage to do what is right, even when it is hard.